I think influencer marketing, I'm still not sure it's the right term, to be honest, in like B2B, because it seems to conjure up images in people's minds of like, Cristiano Ronaldo or Kylie Jenner or whatever. And it's just, that kind of B2B, slightly icky version of influence where you're just using fame and celebrity to drive reach.
You gave the example of agency owners, which is quite interesting because they're influential, but they're not influencers, if you like. They're not famous, but they have strong within their niche, apart from myself and Chris. Now,
we weren't invited by Andy to the programme. We were just want to stress that out. Stephen Bartlett was.
Yeah, so I'm expecting Chris Norton to be on the next series of Dragon's Den.
Do you hear that, Bartlett? I'm coming for you. They shoved most of their budget into performance ads, dropped £30,000 on a single influencer, then sat back in the office waiting for those sign-ups that never came. Today, my guest, Andy Lambert, co-founder of social media platform ContentCal, and now on the Adobe Express product team, breaks down how that happened and what it cost. So, if you've ever watched your paid media efficiency fall off a cliff, or run an influencer pilot that barely moves the needle, this episode will help you rebalance brand and demand, and build partnerships that actually shift revenue onto your next campaign. I'm Chris Norton, and this is Embracing Marketing Mistakes, where senior marketers turn hard lessons into better campaigns and sharper decisions. Today, I'm joined by Andy Lambert, co-founder of ContentCal, which raised over £10 million before being acquired by Adobe. He's also the author of 2 books on modern B2B marketing. Andy massively overinvested in performance ads. He blew $30,000 on transactional influencer campaigns that delivered just a handful of signups. And then he had to rebuild growth around community, creators, and a personality-led brand to hopefully get ContentCal to acquisition. We will break down why he misread demand creation versus demand capture, where control slipped with influencers and media spend, and what he now does inside Adobe Express. In this episode, you're going to learn how to stop treating influencers like glorified media buys, how to build a B2B creator ecosystem across 6 spheres of influence, and what it takes to future-proof your marketing when AI is raising the floor on the content. So, let's get into it.
Andy Lambert, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Good to be here.
Now, can you tell us about your business that you had and you've sold to Adobe, right? So do you want to tell us a little bit about what you did, where it came from, what the idea was? If that's all right.
Yeah, sure. So I was co-founder of it. The original idea can be credited to a guy called Alex, my longtime business partner now. Alex had created an agency and has sketched out this idea for a content calendar product to make collaboration between the agency and clients better, because people were sending content plans on spreadsheets and Google Sheets, etc. So saw an opportunity to productize that. So my background has always been in B2B SaaS. So I saw Alex's idea and I thought, quite fancy that. So I joined him, and together we grew that business with other folk, obviously, away from just being an agency into being a software business. Raised some funding, raised about 10 million over the course of the 5 years that we were chipping away at it. And then 5 years after starting to take ContentCal very seriously, we sold it, which was earlier than we expected, but we were not going to say no.
So you now sat on a yacht off the south of France, is that right?
Not quite that. There's probably some stories in how much equity you give away in that, but never mind. We live and we learn. But I cannot argue about it.
So you didn't have to go up in a lift and Evan Davies wasn't there, and you didn't have to stand in front of Stephen Bartlett and everybody?
No, didn't have to do that. We do work very closely with Stephen Bartlett these days, funnily enough, from an Adobe point of view. But no, well, actually Stephen Bartlett was a long-time friend of the business. He joined us on some webinars in the early days, etc. So funny you bring him up, because he's been very, very close to ContentCal. His team all use the product as well. So it's been great seeing his career go from strength to strength. So yeah, very cool. But yes, we did not do a Dragon's Den thing. Sometimes it kind of felt like it.
I know he got his opportunity on Dragon's Den from his podcast. That just shows you how a niche podcast can turn into some sort of celebrity. Anyway, we're not going to give Stephen Bartlett too much airtime. He's got enough. He's all over the bloody internet. He's everywhere, isn't he?
Yeah. So I'm expecting Chris Norton to be on the next couple of series of Dragon's Den.
Do you hear that, Bartlett? I'm coming for you.
So, Andy, and apologies for my voice again. I've got a bit of a cold in case anyone's wondering why I sound like this. So when you sold to Adobe then, did you then stay on in the business in some capacity, or was it a case of sell the business, start a completely new career, do something completely new?
No, so I'm still here 4 years post acquisition. Don't have to be. That part is done. But it's been fascinating to me to work in such a large organization, and I think the 25th world's largest company by market cap, which is pretty amazing. And what is amazing to me is the amount of stuff that I didn't know in terms of like product development at that scale, decisions you got to make, implications. Because I was first time founder really. I kind of done one before, but like this is the first one we've taken seriously. You just make it up as you go along, basically. You just use judgment, luck, chance, bit of graft, a lot of that to make it happen. And by hook or by crook, we got the outcome. But then when you work with some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, it's quite a humbling experience to be like, okay, there's a huge gaps in my knowledge of being a well-rounded business person when you start to work with folk in Silicon Valley. So I couldn't not take that opportunity to learn from folk like that, because I sure as hell didn't have the qualifications that would get me into Adobe otherwise.
And at what point did you're also a published author, aren't you? And you've written 2 books, which we'll talk about later on. So did that come kind of post acquisition, or is that always something that was bubbling under, before you decided to sell?
You see what Will did there, don't you, Andy? After we had our little chat, and he's just throwing it up that way. It's quite interesting, isn't it?
That's not suspicious, rather.
Very smooth. But to be clear, when you say published author, I published it.
I remember that chat.
So let's be clear about that. It got bestseller status, so I'll take it. I took a screenshot of bestseller on Amazon. I was like, if it's next to my hero Seth Godin, I'm happy. But it was always just one of those things that I was like, I really want to write a book one day, for no reason other than the fact I'm like, I wanted to call myself an author. And it just felt like the right time. This was post sale, because I had so much in my mind from doing this in terms of like mental models that I'd come up with. So wrote one in 2022 just post sale, and just wrote another one this year as well. So which had taken longer for me to organize my thoughts around this most recent book. So it's very fun, very cathartic experience getting out of your head.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating. I mean, I think spheres of influence, particularly. We can talk about how many copies that have been downloaded later on. Let's say 100,000, 200,000. It could be anything, couldn't it?
I haven't even checked, to be honest. I just put it out there. But carry on. Yeah,
so it kind of talks about B2B brands leveraging creators and communities and influencers, isn't it? Which is a really kind of fascinating area, because I think when people think about influencer marketing or community marketing, you naturally think about consumer brands, don't you? But actually, it's absolutely as applicable for B2B brands as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to put like a practical framework behind that, because I think influencer marketing, I'm still not sure it's the right term, to be honest, in like B2B, because it seems to conjure up images in people's minds of like, Cristiano Ronaldo or Kylie Jenner or whatever. And it's just, that kind of B2B, slightly icky version of influence where you're just using fame and celebrity to drive reach. B2B is a little more nuanced. Well, it's a lot more nuanced than that, because it's not about necessary scale or total number of followers, etc., or engagement rates. It's about a signal of trust, right? Because we all have our trusted networks, which is the whole reason of spheres of influence, right? Because we're all influenced by the people that are on our WhatsApp chats, our friends that we meet up in with communities, or in communities rather. It's in that kind of messy nuance where like subject matter expertise, thought leadership, and influence really happens. So, you know, in B2B, an influencer, you're not buying like reach and distribution. You're kind of buying trust. And that's the most important thing that we're trying to engineer for, especially given everything that's happening to marketing distribution of late, change in search and AI search, etc. So yeah, it feels like the timing is right, and there's a lot more narrative about it now, which is good. But I want to write this book to make a bit more practical, rather than just like, hey, let's just get our product to some famous people, give them 30 grand and get them to post about it. Because I've done that with ContentCal, and I can tell you, you don't get the return. So
can we dive into that, Andy? Because there is so many people, there'll be marketing professionals listening to this now doing exactly that. I see briefs for that. We must see quite over 10 a year about, we've got this budget for influencer marketing, and it doesn't tend to be brand ambassadorship or anything like that. It tends to be, this is the budget we've got. Let's go out to as many influencers as we can. And it does feel very, very transactional, and not what, you know, working in PR, the side of marketing that we come from. It's about relationships. And I suppose that's why media relations, influencer relations, all those sorts of things. I think it's important to build a relationship with that set of influencers that you're going to work with, and have a reason for them to have a bloody opinion on what you're doing. So you just said that you had a problem in what you've done. How can we let's dive into that. Where have you gone wrong then in that sphere? Sorry to use the reference to your book there.
Yeah, I mean, you said it yourself, Chris, because I think the cardinal sin that most people make is that they see it as a transaction, and they see it like performance marketing, where it's like, well, here's the value exchange. You've got an audience. I've got money. Let's make it happen. You know, that can, you know, I'm not saying it can't work, but it's less likely for it to work. And oftentimes, and this is again another cardinal sin, I see companies say, oh, let's do a pilot. Let's, you know, get 10, 20, 30 grand, whatever the number is, and, you know, split it across 5 influencers and get them to post about, you know, our product, service, whatever it is. And let's analyze the impact in a couple of weeks post that campaign. Most of the times they'll be like, a little bit underwhelming, right? Because you've done 2 things. One, you thought that people change perceptions just off the back of one post, right? Trust takes time to build. Just because Chris or Will, you start talking about a widget or a product or whatever, you know, might put it on my radar, being like, never thought about that before. But it doesn't necessarily mean that after one post, I'm going to use it ongoing. Now, if I keep on seeing you, Will, or Chris start to talk about things regularly, that's a different thing, because then I can say, all right, you know, I've started to see how Chris or Will, people I respect, are using this in their workflow, and it now is more contextually relevant to me. So this, bear in mind, like a lot of the lens that I talk at this through is through more kind of complicated tech buying in B2B. Typically, that's the slice of the world that I typically see and think about the most. So there's that point. Transaction doesn't happen, you know, buying process doesn't happen in a vacuum like that. There's other stakeholders to engage. There's what we call hidden buyers, people that are in the COO or CFO positions that didn't see your post, but they need to be influenced. Anyway, go on that forever. But anyway, transaction is a problem. Pilot, looking at things in these little pilot, you know, confined things and not stretching it out over the longer term. Again, problems. And that's what we did with one particular influencer, where we spent, you know, 30 grand for them to do a Facebook Live to all of their audience. It just basically did nothing. And we fell into the usual trap of going, you know, oh, great, this would be wicked. We stayed late in the office because this person was based in North America. And we're like, watch the signups come in, lads, and crickets, maybe 5, 10 signups. We're like, oh, because we just, again, misunderstood the difference between demand creation and demand capture, right? We've just started to put this on people's radar, right? We started to create demand when this is not a transaction. So that's the primary issue that we've fallen into. So how do we resolve that? And how do we think about it better? Number one, we got to think about the right value exchange. So what do these people do that we're going to work with over the long term that really makes sense for us as a business? So for ContentCal, we spent time working with like agency owners because they were our target audience. So people that also owned agencies that were going to talk about us on our behalf. And I also made it mandatory for anyone that we work with that they have to use the product. If they didn't want to use it, I'd let them use it for free, of course, but they had to use it regularly, because if these people were just willing to trade their thought leadership just to say, just for a few bucks to talk about ContentCal, that's no good, right? I needed that. And the way I've kind of stress tested this, my mental model was like, if these people are not advocating for us when we're not watching, then I'm not interested in them being an influencer, right? Because I need, if Chris or Will, you are an influencer for ContentCal or one of our ambassadors or whatever we call it, I want you in your private circles to go, you know what? I genuinely think you should use ContentCal, because that's where trust is formed, not just in a singular LinkedIn post. And I think we miss that as a thing. And that also, that doesn't happen in a moment. That means, the effort that I end up going to, that I would spend time with each of those influencers. I don't just send them a brief and go, oh, we got X grand for you to post about us. I'll then go meet them either virtually or face to face, understand what they do, build a relationship, get them bought into the product. It takes a lot longer that way. But then what I want is someone that's going to work with me over the long term, because one, they'll advocate for it on their own time. And two, they'll advocate for it over a longer period of time, because we know decisions in B2B product buying take time. So anyway, I could go on forever, but hopefully that.
Well, that's, yeah, I was going to say, I mean, the fact that you gave the example of agency owners, which is quite interesting because they're influential, but they're not influencers, if you like. They're not famous, but they have strong influence within their niche, apart from myself and Chris. Now,
we weren't invited by Andy to the program. We were just want to stress that out. Stephen Bartlett was.
We were not.
Pick the right horse there, mate.
So how do we approach, I guess, kind of mapping out, with my consumer hat on, I know we'd do a period of influencer mapping, and that would be reading the press. It would be trawling Instagram, speaking to agents. That's not so applicable now, is it? It's about looking at influencers. And you talk about hidden influencers as well, which I found quite interesting. So how do we kind of find those potentially influential people we can engage with?
Nice question. So starts with the obvious answer, which is, where do your audiences spend time? And one of the most powerful initial research tools in this space. And again, I am not an influencer here, but I like the product and respect him deeply. Rand Fishkin's Spark Toro app is really good for this. So Spark Toro is a place where you can put in, hey, I'm targeting agency owners. Let's go, just run with that as an example. And it will then list the communities and the podcasts that agency owners typically frequent. Is the data perfect? No, it's not. But it's a really good start in getting you with a bit of a short list there. So that's point one, table stakes. And then there's some really easy stuff that just takes time that I just see many marketers not doing at ContentCal, because maybe it was slightly easier because we're marketing minded from a leadership point of view. And we also had a sales motion. So I made it mandatory for all the sales team. So for whenever we were closing a deal, they would ask 2 questions, and it was mandatory for that they put the answers in HubSpot so that we could see how this worked as a macro. So we could see like the deal cycles. The 2 questions that they needed to ask was, one, how did you hear about us? Simple, right? Everyone asked that question, but it's really important that we get the quant here, because HubSpot was always telling us it came through Google, because naturally it's last click attribution where someone's heard about you on a podcast or whatever, and then they Google you, right? So always get the sales team to gut check that. How did you truly hear about us? And the second question is like, who or what influenced you to sign up right now? What was a compelling event that you just see? Did you just listen to someone talking about Spark Toro on Chris's podcast? Did you just hear about that? So that is the nuance we want. So what I started to see was like regular names appear. So that gave me like the most precious funnel of people I would like go out of my way to build relationships with, because they are our true influencers. They're the people that people are listening to. So I think that there's just so much gold in that, to be honest, and so many people miss that simple step.
And you also, so I suppose anyone reviewing your product online, anybody kind of spontaneously advocating it. I mean, there's a whole wealth of sources, isn't there? And it's absolutely kind of resetting how you view influencers, isn't it? Because these people might not appear to be prolific, but actually, if they've got that genuine influence, they're going to have a great, much greater impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the whole core thesis of the book is based on this 6 spheres of influence. So starting from, as you said, from the customer advocates to your evangelists, to communities, to creators, to then the kind of more macro personality / celebrity. So on your real outside of the tier, your Stephen Bartlett's, if you will. And then on the farthest outside of those 6 spheres are your kind of what you'd class as industry experts. So in tech, they would be, your analysts and researchers in like Forrester or Gartner or people like that, the ones that have not macro influence, right? But they're the ones that have influence in the boardrooms. So, but if you activate all those 6 spheres from like, getting customers to love you first, finding, to your point, Will, those evangelists that are naturally talking about it, because some people just want to advocate for products. Like I advocate for Spark Toro because I really like the notion, the ambition of it. And then obviously communities was a huge piece for us as well. Many businesses sleep on communities because again, it's hard to research, takes a lot of time, but the impact that the marketing meetup community had for ContentCal. So a marketing meetup, I think it's 50,000 marketers. It's quite big in the UK, starting to gain some presence in the US. But notice that group was, I attended a couple of events in person. I was like looking around, I was like, most of these people in here are our ICP. So, again, just having your ear to the ground in your market, tight knowledge, or it all starts really a tight ICP. Because I was like, agency owners, it was so tight, that initial ICP, that it became a lot easier to then figure out where they hung out. Because it's then easy just to ask fellow agency owners, like I know Chris, where do you get your information from? And then once you understand that, then you'll find those communities to spend time in. And, the more often you show up there, the bigger influence you will drive. Anyway, long narrative, 6 spheres. That's the kind of nuance of broader category of like influencer marketing in B2B.
And you've used brand building a lot in the sale as well. So like, I noticed one of the reasons I found you is that you've got like 25,000 followers on LinkedIn. You do a lot of personal like videos where you're talking about, and you'll break down the news from social media or whatever it is that week, won't you? But you make it quite personal. Do you want to explain how you've utilized that? And was that key as part of the getting the interest from Adobe, or was it just something that you found you were getting more views and engagement for on your LinkedIn, etc.?
I think I doubt it was key for Adobe. There's too many other interdependent factors. Whilst I'd love to say everyone post on LinkedIn because you'll get bought by Adobe for some 9-figure acquisition, that would be nice. But I'm not sure I could say that with all good confidence. But and I think I might have shared this with you in our kind of previous call as well, Chris, that there is such a wonderful halo effect to doing stuff personally on LinkedIn. The most memorable asset and the best thing that you have is like as a smaller brand, someone that's kind of challenging the existing category and fighting against bigger competitors, most memorable thing you have are the people within your organization, because people will remember a name better than they will a logo or what you say or anything like that, right? So, and again, that really helped because of a few things. One, because we pivoted from a very performance dominated marketing strategy and budget where 90% of all of our marketing budget went to performance channels, right? Because I think we all know how that story ends, over fixated on performance marketing, basically living and dying by our weekly efficiency, the cost of acquiring customers versus lifetime values, always just over fixating on that. And our performance channels did not scale as we started to raise capital for the business, because as you know, professional marketers, performance marketing channels don't scale linearly when you just pile on more budget. It doesn't mean you're going to suddenly, if you 10x the budget, doesn't mean you're immediately going to 10x the amount of customers you went off the back of it.
You'd be amazed at how many people are listening to this now thinking, doesn't it? It sounds obvious, but I bet you there's a lot of people who've never had the budget to be able to go, actually, if my boss just gave me another, 3 times the budget, because we get, cost per acquisition is 20 quid, say. If we had another 10,000 quid, we could do so much more. But it doesn't work that way, does it? And that's how you found out the hard way.
It doesn't. You just get efficiency breaks down, costs continue to rise. And not to say it's impossible to scale. And I think there's other teams that were better at performance marketing than we were, better creatively, will be better targeting, etc. So, I'm a sample size of one, but it's just not a linear thing, right? And that's the problem. And I think it represents the lack of maturity that we had as like first time founding team, where we misunderstood the relationship between demand creation and demand capture, right? We had over fixated on demand capture and under fixated on demand creation, which kind of leads back to the whole question around brand that you're asking, Chris. So that then led us to pivot our strategy. We didn't remove all budget from performance, obviously, but started to rebalance it between brand and demand. And again, brand marketing often gets a bit of a bad rep because it's like C-suite see it as like, oh, we're just going to put our name on a flyer. It's the kind of nice to have frilly stuff around the outside, which we all know is BS, right? But I think marketers could do a better job at like articulating what does good quality brand marketing look like, and what is the impact of it. To break it down for what we did. So one part was like this whole personality driven growth thing where we all started activating our kind of personal brands. The CEO and me as co-founder did a lot there. Again, the halo effect was super impactful for 2 reasons. One, whenever I walk into a sales meeting, people would typically look at me and go, oh, I think I recognize you. You're the guy that does the roundups on LinkedIn. At that point, I know I've won the deal, right? Because already they're going to be the one remembering me after I've left the meeting, right? So already we're giving our product an unfavorable head start, because they already feel like they have a connection and they know me. There's already the modicum of trust that exists. So that's incredibly powerful. And 2, we really doubled down on webinars. So, that's not an exciting new channel, but what we wanted to do was like create like the best in class webinars for social media strategy, the best speakers that we could get. Some we would pay, so again, this links to like our influencer stuff. Some we wouldn't pay, but the halo effect we got from that was significant. So head of social at Monzo, Stephen Bartlett being on one of them, a whole raft of people that are deeply respected. Not most of them weren't customers, but it's really interesting because when you're putting on such, great speakers, great content, really actual advice from people that are truly respected in the space, it gives your brand such a halo effect around your brand, because people assimilate, oh, wow, ContentCal's being used by Stephen Bartlett, by Innocent Smoothies, by Monzo. It's like, some of them were, but not all of them. But because we're kind of hosting them, create that mental model and the connection, because people are like, hell, ContentCal's onto something big.
So that let's dive onto webinars a little bit. And I've got a selfish reason for asking these questions as well.
Is that because we've got a webinar early next year that we could do with Adobe appearing on?
But I'm intrigued because, I mean, from our perspective, post-pandemic, all of our kind of IRL events went online, turned to webinars. And, I think most other companies also looked at webinars. We've got longevity, and when it comes to webinars, and I think we've outlasted quite a lot of other competitors potentially. But there's an awful lot of webinars is what I'm saying. So are you saying you kind of doubling down and improving the quality? Was it just getting amazing guests, or did you do other sort of strategies and tactics to make your webinars stand out?
Great question. I think, yeah, for sure. There was favorable timing. There was definitely that, right? Because we're talking when we really started doubling down middle of 2020, all the way through 21, right? So perfect time for webinars. That being said, I still do them today at Adobe. Of course, I don't really talk about this because everyone's like, oh, it's Adobe, so you get a load of people. But we still have like 1,500, 2,000 people turn up live. So, the demand is there if you've got like a good message market fit. Do we do anything special? I don't think so.
We'll clip that bit.
That's so line, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, high quality speakers, good engaged email list. And I think by having a lot of the, like, I want to I want to phrase this without making me sound like an egotistical idiot. But because I fronted a lot of this up, writing the emails, doing the LinkedIn, it all built around that whole kind of broader brand narrative. There was that kind of connective tissue of like, people felt like they could also talk to me. So I'd get loads of questions off the back of it. Like, oh, that was really interesting. What's your advice for doing X, Y, Z? I respond to absolutely everything. You end up drowning in like DMs, but it builds such goodwill around the business where you're just known for doing like high quality webinars, high quality advice, and just you're the social media strategy guys. And because we were so tight on what we wanted to be known for, again, that's a really important question that anyone needs to ask themselves and align around when you're going after these content-driven initiatives. It's like, what do you want to be known for? Pick one thing. Don't say 5, because that's what most people do. Like, do one. Who is your ICP? Get tight. Don't say multiple. Get super tight on them, and get super tight on, if that's your target audience, where you're going to find them. Again, this talks to my webinar promotion, because seeding it in communities, not just dropping links for promo sakes, but because you built the relationships, you've done your groundwork of like, here's the people that are influential in our space, and be like, hey, guess what, guys? We got another webinar coming up. We got Stephen Bartlett, or head of social at Innocent. I would love for you to come along. It doesn't feel promotional because you've been there before, right? It's not like you're turning up for the first time, just like link spamming. So because we built that model and that engine, it was something that was sustainable. But basically, it's like growing a flywheel around a business. And it's just not something that you just turn on. Hey, we'll do webinars. Bang out a link on LinkedIn. And then people go, oh, webinars didn't really work for me. It's like, you get out what you put in, basically.
Yeah. That's what people do with videos, isn't it? We did a video, it didn't work. They're like, what sort of video? What was it targeting? What was it about? There's a million different types of video you could do. A million different types of channel and content. And yeah, it's the same. I know what you mean. It's one of the reasons we started the podcast, actually, is to meet interesting people that work in marketing and continual professional development, and to meet, other people in this. And it has worked out that way. But I tell you what, it's a slog. You have to put the reps in, don't you, to achieve anything in any sort of form of B2B brand marketing.
Yeah. And that is the hardest thing. That's the biggest blocker, because I'm also a realist, even though I'm slightly cynical sometimes. It's like, made some joke of my marketing colleagues here, but like the day-to-day pressures are real, and I do get it. Like you're always battling like short-termist thinking, trying to prove ROI. It's hard. And I don't actually have a silver bullet to solve that one too, but all of the best initiatives, it always feels like you've got some magic strategy or something incredible happened, but it's really just a combination of doing a sensible set of actions over a sustained period of time. Usually what most good stuff comes down to.
It's compounded, isn't it? Basically, like the reps of whatever types of marketing it is. Brand. The more you do it, it's not just like you've done it twice. It's compounded. That twice becomes like the power of 5. It's really, really weird to measure.
That's exactly it.
So you talk about kind of personal branding, and I'm a big believer in the importance. I mean, I think that's one of the big growth areas in B2B thought leadership, isn't it? The kind of the individual personal branding. Does that kind of cross over to how you would market the brand? So, is it the same thing? Would you as individuals all have your own personal brands, and that doesn't cross over into how the brand markets itself on LinkedIn, for example, or are the two the same thing?
Honestly, I think it's kind of one and the same. I'm no trained brand marketer. So again, this is open to interpretation. So it's fair to say this is my view of the world. It isn't necessarily the view of the world. But an example I'll point to is a meeting notes software company called TLDV. They had a very smart approach to how they do LinkedIn and branding across all social channels. Yeah, it feels slightly more unhinged than their website. Their website's still very casual, laid back, conversational, because they know their target audience, which are kind of people like us, basically. So we don't necessarily need like corporate blues and crap like that. We just need human language. So they do, whilst they do understand it, but it's slightly toned down. But the thing that's so amazing that they've done on LinkedIn, as you can see, and they've proven the thesis that LinkedIn company pages are dead entirely wrong, right? So if you do LinkedIn well, company pages are great too. They've also done a lot on their own personal brands. But the thing that TLDV did very well, and again, this goes back to a different mindset when we're working with creators. They hired creators. They found people that were talking that kind of language to their target audience. So we're appealing, they predominantly market to product folk, right? Like myself. So they're big in that space. Again, tight ICP. And they looked on TikTok predominantly as to who are the creators that are talking about like, that just got like real fun, slightly, excuse my language, piss-taking narratives for PMs. Just, work orientated, but kind of satirical, which everyone loves, right? It's kind of entertainment orientated content. So they actually started by testing those creators. Let's do a couple of briefs together. Because it worked quite well, they just hired them. So if anyone looks at TLDV, you'll see some regular faces and personalities that represent that brand. And that brand on social isn't really TLDV. It's those characters that exist.
Right. Interesting.
So, and that then gives them a really interesting differentiated position on social. So yeah, I think times are changing here, and that obviously will give brand managers some sleepless nights, I think. Would that work for a business like Adobe? I'm not sure. But it just goes to show this is where I think there is, small to mid-sized companies have a real strategic advantage here.
And it's great to see, quite honestly, real kind of radical thinking and creativity within those B2B fields. I mean, it started happening a few years ago, didn't it? And people realized that actually you don't need to publish a dry white paper on LinkedIn and then get some business people in suits talking about it. You can actually be better than that. You can be more creative than that. And it's great to see all these brands embracing that.
Definitely. And it's working at the fastest growing brand level. You look at someone like Clay, for example. Again, they're publishing their CFO and CEO having an open dialogue. This is a really good post on LinkedIn, but it's just like fly on the wall video about the CEO and CFO debating whether they should sponsor the Super Bowl or not. and this is one of the fastest growing B2B brands of all time from a revenue point of view. And just a pretty kind of lo-fi recorded conversation, because they know their audience. They know that marketers are constantly battling that ROI thing. So having a fly on the wall convo between a CEO and a CFO, that's manna from heaven. Like, no wonder it got that much engagement. Again, it's just knowing your audience, understanding their pain points. And
that's exactly it, isn't it? It's such a kind of intuitive understanding of the audience, and it's just brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Just a little creative approach to it. Do something a bit different. Like, hey, what if we tried this? And it's like a screw it, let's do it attitude. And I love it.
Yeah. So would you say that the marketing mistake that you've shared today then about the overinvestment in ads you talk about lineal growth, is that the big mistake that you could share on this pod, do you think? I mean, it sounds like a big learning, because you've had a decent budget to spend behind that, and then you've seen it not work. How haven't you? Is there something else you want to share as well?
No, basically that. That plus the wasted 30 grand with that singular influencer, where we started the conversation. Basically, we started the conversation talking about my multiple F-ups as it relates to spending on the marketing budget.
Yeah.
But yeah, you live and you learn. So hopefully people won't have to make those mistakes again.
They will, though. They will. Everybody makes the lineal, if I keep spending this, I'm going to get this out, and it doesn't work. That engine doesn't work that way. Like,
then $1 million later, you realise perhaps it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So what are you doing these days then in Adobe? You've got quite an interesting job title. What does that mean that you do day to day now at Adobe?
Product strategy, product development, all related to a product called Adobe Express. So less hands-on with marketing these days, although I constantly annoy our marketing teams with ideas and suggestions. So yeah, it's a little bit different to what I've done in the past, but like I said, I'm really interested, like how from like a career point of view, like you can have well-rounded experiences, because I think like the ability of a marketer to become like a generalist, I think is a really important skill, because especially as the marketing budgets grow, marketing headcounts don't seem to be typically. And I think we're now getting past the time where marketers will be allowed to, hey, I'll get an engineer to work on this, or outsource their thinking. And I don't think agency budgets are necessarily going to grow in line with that, which is a challenge sometimes. I'm interested in your take too. But I've been both reading and writing about the concept of like the Gen marketer, which both relates to, their understanding of Gen AI, right? Beyond writing captions or copy. Like, how do we truly understand Gen AI and agentic workflows? And we're still fairly early, so it's okay if everyone feels behind with Gen AI. I think everyone's in that constant state of mind of like, it's overwhelming, so much change, etc. But I think it's very important for marketers really to start thinking in terms of workflows, and thinking in like their systems thinking is something that needed to level up. And I identified that as a problem not a problem, but a gap that I had in my own kind of self-development. Wasn't a very good systems thinker. Now, working in product that's such a, ridiculously big and fast-moving organization, systems thinking, implications, etc. You've got to be a lot smarter with some of your critical thinking. So that's been good. So I think, again, very long-winded answer, but very important for like marketers to experience, or form a well-rounded view of the world, level up their capabilities in Gen AI, obviously. And, their ability. And I think this is quite interesting because we spent the last 10 years creating content, which is fine, but I think increasingly we're going to be about, like, for marketers, are going to be about creating experiences. So create a little microsite or landing page or little experience, or like a little kind of, scorecard or checker, like that. These kind of little micro experiences we used to have to rely on engineers to build and have that as a gated environment. Now with tools like Lovable or Replit or Cursor or whatever our chosen flavor is, we can code up things in a couple of days that anyone can do, provided they've got an interesting view of the world and see the gaps in their target audience that they could easily serve. Like, to give you an example, I know it's a kind of long narrative. Like, we put so much effort in like ranking number 1 for SEO for content calendar, and we just had like this, and we got to number 1 or 2 for that search term, and the kind of main asset there was a Google Sheet template of a content calendar. But like now these days, I would be totally approaching that completely differently. I would be creating like an interactive content calendar full of ideas coded on Lovable, of which anyone can use and like trial some form of ContentCal light experience, which I could then gate once they've done enough things in a product to then go, why don't you try the full version here? And I could do that as a marketer. I'm not a developer. I'm technically minded, but I'm not a developer. So I've always had to rely on dev teams to build experiences like that. So it's really empowering for us as marketers to be systems thinkers, to think more broadly, and to think in terms of experiences, not just content, is my takeaway.
Yeah, because Adobe are leading the way in generative AI, and we said this on our chat, didn't we? And I heard that you had the big conference in the US, and I heard a lot of people talking about it, and the fact that the generative side of it is really exciting in the way that you can make multiple types of paid. All your creative, you could have hundreds of thousands of types of personalized. This is the era that we're in. We're in the era of personalization, because we've talked about personalization for bloody donkey's years in marketing, but now it's actually possible. You can personalize your content down to the molecular level, can't you? And Adobe are leading the way in that. So, and I've not been paid for this message, just to be clear, but I've heard it, and you're getting your message out there. Did you go to that conference, or have you?
Yes.
You did. What was your takeaway from it?
Yeah, good question. It's a massive conference. It's called Adobe Max in Los Angeles, so it's pretty cool.
We'll take a couple of tickets for the podcast next year.
Yeah, all right, cool.
We'll come and report on it.
Well, funnily enough, like this year was the first year we brought 300 influencers. We'll ship them out all
right, okay.
Laid on a dedicated experience. Again, whilst it's not directly related, it's again that point about marketers should be creating experiences, not just, we didn't just give these 300 creators like, here, post about Adobe Express. We're like, you know what? Well, I appreciate I'm talking at a massive business level, so not everyone can do this. But, we then invested in those 300 creators, bring them out to Adobe Max LA, put them up, etc., give them a really cool experience, laid on all of this experiential stuff and other like creators that they could learn from. And the net result with that was, a huge amount of content that would end up getting created, not by us, but through all these people that were attending, creating like a groundswell, which meant lots of people started hearing about us. Again, just goes to show like, Adobe's also been on a journey with how to work with creators and the broader creator economy. So it's happening at all levels, and and it's okay. We might be here on a journey, but we want to get to like that Adobe level, and there is a path to get there, which I try and lay out in the book. So anyway, my takeaway was that like creators were really at the core of what we were doing, and bringing them into the Adobe ecosystem. And 2 was the amount that we are doing by baking in like Adobe experiences into like third-party products. So being able to create directly inside of ChatGPT, for example, if you're prompting something and you want to design, you can just call the Adobe Express app and it will mock up a design for you, which is incredible. We launched a whole bunch of like agentic and assistant-based workflows, which were really cool. Again, unlocking the thing that we it's still not perfect, right? Let me be clear. There's still a way to go, but we now are at a point where we have, this isn't dreamland stuff where we can put in a prompt and get a series of incredibly well created content as off the back as a result, rather than like, oh well, there's a load of stuff, but can I use it? We're now at the point of like, it's of genuine utility. So yeah, it felt like the Gen AI promise had very much arrived, to be honest.
Yeah, because the other side of that is, are we, which is a post that I haven't done on LinkedIn, but are we in the era of AI sloptimization, which is basically just AI slop everywhere? Just let's slop it about. Let's just get a quick prompt to write a post on LinkedIn about marketing because I'm not very creative. Here you go, have this. Put 5 emoticons and a few M dashes in. Although I've heard that ChatGPT's now removed M dashes if you ask, it actually does that. So for all you out there writing your LinkedIn posts on that, it does actually now remove it. So are we in the era of beige marketing that AI is doing, or is it going to just go? Is it going to get so good that we're like, okay, shit, we need to worry about our jobs? Because that it seems to be too. And I know what social media is like. You go on TikTok, it's like AI is brilliant. It's going to change your life. We're all going to be playing paddle all day, and we're not going to be working. Or the other side of it, AI is going to have taken all our jobs. We're going to be unemployed, and it's going to nuke us all. It seems to be nowhere in between.
Yeah, and specifically for designers, what does that mean? The stuff you're talking about. How's that got
the creative?
Yeah, to wipe out creatives, or will it evolve the way creatives work?
Truth answer, I don't know. I have some theories on this.
Click that as well.
Yeah.
This is some glue.
Yeah. But I think it's I'm old enough and bald enough now to realize that whilst I have opinions, they are not facts. There's a difference between my opinion and fact. But what we're seeing is like both a raising of the floor, which means like crap content won't really exist, like really bad content won't exist, because why would it? Because Gen AI is so darn good. Like Google Gemini 3 dropped last week, which is unbelievably good, right? So there's a huge amount of power in that. I'm currently stress testing that to make some infographics off the back of my LinkedIn post, because infographics have been really hard to do. It's better than anything else.
I saw some examples of that. It does look good.
Yeah, I'm still not 100% okay with it, but it's definitely in the right direction, because like visual representations of mental models is a real powerful like thought leadership tool. So I'm really keen to dive into that. So I think, incredible opportunity. It's, raised the floor. Okay. But it's also raised the ceiling simultaneously, is because, good quality, like the content that's really going to cut through, it doesn't necessarily have to be, surprising anymore, because it's going to be very hard to surprise people, right? Like a gorilla walking through a forest, singing on a skateboard or whatever. You can do it all. Like you can do it all, which is fine. But I think my kind of more optimistic view of the world is that, personalities will continue to come to the fore. And I'm thinking through my lens of B2B, I think it makes this kind of stuff even more valuable. When I say this kind of stuff, I mean podcasts, I mean all the stuff that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Because great for ads. No doubt. Performance-based ads are going to need to happen. So there's lots of ways to use generative AI to build ads to target people. If you're Coke, for example, I know we're talking about B2B, but if you're Coke and you want to translate your ads and have 700 different variations for Black Friday, crack on, because you now can. Brilliant. And it can all be perfectly trained in your own custom model, all commercially safe. Absolute manna from heaven for performance marketers. But, taking it back into like more kind of small to mid-sized business, B2B marketing, again, it's just more nuanced than it's this or that, because, both things are true at the same time. Like, let's take the example of a business like Clay. Great B2B software, right? they'll have a component of their performance marketing, which they will have used Gen AI to help them create a whole batch load of content, which they're testing the variables and variations across multiple channels. Or they'll have created numerous thumbnails for YouTube and testing 30 different thumbnail variations. All of that stuff we know is good practice, but us as marketers never had the time to do it. So it's a brilliant unlock for like the operating piece behind content. We often think about Gen AI in the context of just generating content, but actually Gen AI to underpin the operations of content, to
optimizing content.
Exactly. You know, that's just good stuff. Humans don't want to do that, right? And this is better is it gets smarter and it like automatically optimizes off the back of, hey, this did well, we're going to serve this ad more. No one wants to pore over spreadsheets. That's not fun human labor, right? Machines can lay. But then you've got the other side, you know, let's say kind of Clay have got their self-optimizing like Gen AI performance marketing motion going. But they're also now turning to LinkedIn with the CEO and CFO having a fly on the wall, lo-fi conversation, because they know that that kind of deeper, long form conversation, more deep human engagement that we're having on this podcast today is and probably will become even more important. So yeah, a bit of both really. It's not either or.
But I love the message. The message, Andy, is B2B. The future of B2B marketing is personalities and is brand. It is brand. I've been saying this for like the last sort of 6 months. It is, which is why we started the podcast 2.5 years ago. It's brand, it's personality, and you've built and sold a business off the back of it. You know, and bloody Bartlett's beating us down. In fact, I think we should create at the end of this podcast, I'm going to email Stephen Bartlett and say we've created a drinking game called the Stephen Bartlett drinking game. You have to drink a shot every time you hear the name Stephen Bartlett during this podcast. Okay. I mean, I could talk to you all day. This has been brilliant.
Yeah, this is great because I mean, future of B2B marketing is something we're really, really interested in, and it's hard to pin down what it is, but I think you've articulated it really, really well, and it's fascinating chat.
That's Will's lead in to get you to come to feature on our future of B2B marketing webinar later next year.
No, that's my lead to get an invite to the LA conference next year.
Oh yeah, I was more of it. Once he started talking about experiences, I was just talking about free tickets. I'm well up for this experience. Anyway,
let's get it done.
Yeah, well, we haven't got a sponsor for the show yet. We've just never get around to doing that. Anyway, well, that wasn't a plug, by the way. That was a blatant. Anyway, you've been on the show now, and you've got to share your knowledge and your fuck ups. If you were us, who's the next guest that you'd have on this show and why?
I'm going to name two, because they're perfect. One's a perfect build on like the more data-driven thesis of what I've been talking about, which is Kate Newstead from LinkedIn. She spoke at my recent B2B forum event, which a couple of weeks ago. So Kate Newstead, she's unreal speaker. And
where's she from? Harry? Where does she work?
At LinkedIn.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, she's brilliant. And
where did she work? LinkedIn. I thought you meant she was on LinkedIn, not at LinkedIn.
So she is the EMEA lead for the B2B Institute. So they do all the kind of research, and it's basically a LinkedIn think tank, which is wicked. So perfect. I mean, I nerd out over that stuff all the time. And then the other is Lisa Vecchio, Veccio, who is head of marketing at Veed, which is one of my favorite like B2B brands, fast growing and perfect build on what I've been showing. They're like ContentCal if we had carried on growing. They haven't sold, they just carried on growing, increasingly pushed a lot of their, split their budget between brand and demand, loads of influencers, load of like in-person activation, big focus on brand, both brand from a personality perspective and brand from like a more traditional, eye-catching colors. You will find no blue anywhere near Veed. Both of those are standout individuals doing standout things.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Great suggestions.
What I'm going to do now is, so I'm going to clip when you mention our names and then clip that bit on the end. Two standout individuals. The power of editing. Yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, that was great, Andy. Thank you for that.
If people want to find you, where can they find you? Which is pretty obvious where they can find you, isn't it?
LinkedIn, funnily enough. Yeah. See you there.